All right, we are live at the Paste Happiest Hour. I've got Hayes Carll with me. Welcome, Hayes.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. How are things in Nashville right now?
Well, trials and tribulations around here. We had the tornadoes before all this hit, and then the corona, and then our power went out the other day. We had the storms come through and knocked it out for 3 nights, but we have electricity and a roof over our heads, so
Yeah,
all in all, pretty good.
the city has taken a beating. You feel like the spirit of Nashville and musicians kind of rallying around each other still there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a Texas native, and I just recently moved here, but I worked here for since 2002. I've been making records out here and working here off and on. And yeah, there's very much that sense of community, and when the tornadoes came, I saw everybody out there just doing fundraisers and out there with chainsaws. A lot of big time music folks were putting actual skin in the game and help people out, and that seems to be a prevailing kind of attitude around here. Is we're all neighbors, and that community, particularly the musical one, is important.
Yeah, one of the most heartbreaking things I saw happening at the beginning of this was fundraisers because of the tornadoes having to get canceled because of COVID, and that's just,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, we had.
yeah,
So I was going to do one with Jamie Johnson and with my wife and Mindy Smith, and um, yeah, it ended up getting canceled, and so yeah, it's all right. We figured out other ways to raise money.
yeah. Well, so glad to have you here today. We were just talking before we went live that the first time you did a pace session was in Atlanta back in like 2007. So
Yeah,
we've been doing this a little while.
yeah. You look back at a certain point and go, okay, that's you know X number of years, which is more than I thought I'd be doing it. So that's all right. It's good to know I've survived this long, both of us.
Yeah, it's good to still be here.
Yeah.
So your most recent album came out last year, and just last month you recorded a new version of one of those songs, which was very cool. The acoustic version of "Times Like These," and I was listening to it today and just noticing it's the same words, but the um, just the whole feel of the song, the whole meaning of the song takes on, feels completely different in times like these and with this acoustic version.
Yeah, well, thank you. I like that song. I like the recording that we did on the record. It had an energy that I loved, but I felt like maybe a little bit of the intensity and anger of the message was got lost in that. Um, there was a bit of a trade off there, and I felt like it was an important one. That message of um, these are divisive times, and it's not in anybody's best interest, and um, it pisses me off as a citizen, and so I felt the need to reiterate that, and so I slowed it down, made it a little swampier. Got together with Daryl Scott, who's just one of my musical heroes, and we went in the studio and just recut it and tried to give it another life. And then so we did that in January, and then it came out in the midst of the Corona thing, and it's kind of added in another layer of uh, weirdness and intensity to it, because these are strange and unprecedented times, and it's hard to ignore that.
Cool. Well, is that one of the songs you're going to play for us today?
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right, let's hear it.
All right. In times like these, everyone could use a hand. Instead of standing around losing ground, fighting over the promised land. And it's so hard to tell if this is heaven or hell, and I can never measure by degrees. But it's sure getting warm around here in times like these. In times like these, do I really need a billionaire? Just taking on my time, trying to tell me how I treat him unfair. Or then I have to pay as the home of the brave gets divided into them and the we. Oh, I find I'm losing my mind in times like these. Yeah, they come and they go, they're here and they're not. Every day I'm getting better at losing something I haven't got. I just wanna do my labor, love my girl and help my neighbor while I keep a little hope in my dreams. But it's sure getting hard, brother, in times like these. In times like these, I wish I had a place to hide. Instead of bringing it together, we're just widening that great divide. I hope and I pray at the end of the day that I can somehow get my troubles to ease. But I gotta say it's not looking good, not in times like these. Yeah, they're coming and cold, they're cold and they're hot. I'm just trying to keep the world from turning me to something I'm not. And I'm gonna try to run till the whole thing's done, and I just hope I don't end up on my knees. But it's sure getting hard to stand up in times like these. I just wanna do my labor, love my girl and help my neighbor while I keep it on my joie de vivre. But it's sure getting hard, brother, in times like these. I could use just a little bit of help in times like these.
Woo! I love that song.
Thank you.
So on the flip side of that song, on the single that you released, at least as it appears on Spotify, is That's the Way Love Goes, which you recorded with your new wife, Allison Moore. Tell us a little bit about how that came about, writing and recording that one.
Well, it was it's a cover. Whitey Schaefer and Lefty Frizzell wrote it, and Johnny Rodriguez took it to #1, and then Merle Haggard took it to #1, and so we figured it had a pretty good track record, and it's just a beautiful song, beautiful classic country song, and we were in Scotland one time at a festival, and Allison, I was just tagging along. I think it was her show, and she asked if I wanted to play a song with her, and I said yes, and so we were kind of scrambling to figure out a good duet we could do, and she brought up that one, and I had heard it, but I'd never played it before, and so she taught it to me real quick, and then we went out and played it, and so it's just one we pull out from time to time, and I just love it. I love singing it with her, and yeah. So this Tuesday is our 1-year anniversary, and yeah. So we put that out, I guess, last month, and it's just something that I wanted to have out in the world. It's a beautiful song, and it's cool for me to get to sing with my wife.
That's great. Well, happy anniversary. How are you guys hanging in there, having to hunker down? And I noticed you would have been in Atlanta last month, out on tour. I know all that got canceled, and you guys doing all right?
Yeah, we're blessed. You know, we did a lot of touring earlier in the year, so we had a little money to get us through, and yeah, a lot of the touring got canceled. I mean, we lost 5 months of work, but we were, you know, we're in a pretty good situation, and we got like I said, a roof over our heads, and we like each other. We're still we're still
Nice.
getting along after a couple months in quarantine, and I got a new dog, which has been a blast and a frustrating thing at the same time. And so yeah, we're good. I'm just making music, doing these live stream shows, and just trying to help out where I can, and take advantage of this time. As an adult, this is the longest stretch I've had in my adult life of time at home by far,
Yeah.
by fourfold probably. So it's kind of nice for me just to get this time to be at home and use other parts of my brain and body other than going on a stage every night.
Yeah. Are you finding this as a time to write or a time to just relax and, um, play your live shows on live streams and all of that? Or is it like creatively a good time for you?
It's a little of all those things, although there hadn't been a ton of relaxing. Weirdly, you'd think being at home and out of work that there'd be a lot more of that, but I think we're both kind of scrambling, trying to figure out how do we adjust to this, and how do we rebuild our lives so that we can make a living. And So that's been a lot of work, and change takes some effort, but it's been rewarding, and again, I can't complain. This has been a pretty good experience for me, all in all.
Well, I'm sure a new dog in the house is part of that work. What kind of
Yeah.
dogs you get?
Well, I thought it was a rescue. So Allison rescued a Chihuahua last year, and I don't really connect with things that small. I don't know. It's just it's like it's not almost not there, and so I wanted a bigger dog, and so I got a rescue, and it's a lab mix. I thought it was maybe lab pit just from looking at her, but I took her to the vet the other day, and they think she's lab Dane, which means she's going to be enormous like a horse. So we're just trying to prepare ourselves for the
So a
gross part.
Chihuahua and a part Great Dane.
Yeah, so
That
we're the
should be an
smallest
interesting
and the largest
combination.
dog. They're best friends. It's hilarious. They just go out in the yard every day and chase each other. Today I walked in and they were both sitting in a chair together, just staring straight at me.
Well, what are you going to play for us second today?
Well, I'm gonna do I'll see if I can remember the words of this, but it's the title track to my last record, and it's just sort of a reminder to myself to stay present through life, and I always quote Ray Wiley Hubbard. He says and I don't know where he got this from, but he says the days where I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations are good days. And that when I heard that, it just really resonated with me, and it kept coming back. I kept coming back to that quote, and it kind of changed my life, and so um, this song was kind of inspired by that, and it's called What It Is. So. My heart was way too empty, and the damage done too deep to stay here for the breaking of the day. My compass is in pieces, and I don't know what I seek, but I'm not sure it matters anyway. Just what it was is gone forever. What it could be, God only knows. And what it is right here in front of me, and I'm not letting go. Just across the border from what I used to be, I still hear the slamming of the door. And the future was a promise it doesn't have to keep, but it might not need keeping anymore. Just what it was is gone forever. What it could be, God only knows. And what it is right here in front of me, and I'm not letting go. I can hear the laughter as I try to make my plans, and then set out like a fool toward the sea. And every wave that crashes rearranges all the sand and puts another path in front of me. And what it was is gone forever. What it could be, God only knows. And what it is right here in front of me, and I'm not letting go. What it is right here in front of me, and I'm not letting go.
Woo! Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're doing this. This is great.
Thank you. It's nice to hear somebody clap at the end of a song. Lately, almost I finish and it's just silence. So,
All right, I gotta get like a echo for my claps, so
yes.
just to feel the crowd that's watching here. So, so you have been doing this. You've been doing live streams of your own for Patreon and helping raise money for other folks. Where can people find out when and how they can hear you play live from Nashville?
Yeah, I'm doing most of. I have a weekly show called Alone Together Tuesdays with Hayes Carll. That was the name of my tour before all this happened. I was doing a solo tour called Alone Together Tour, and then we had to come home, and so it just seemed appropriate to keep it for these live streams, maybe even more so. And so if you just go to my Facebook page, that's got most of the information, or my website, or any of it. I try and get it out there for all the stuff. So I'm writing songs and doing shows on Patreon, and then I'm doing live streams on Facebook mostly.
That's great. I keep talking to folks who have written songs that have just taken on new meaning in this new reality we live in, and Alone Together, as the name of a tour, definitely fits that.
Yeah.
So one thing that we ask everybody who comes on the show is, what is the piece of art, whether that's a TV show, a book, somebody else's album, that's connecting with you right now, entertaining you, keeping you sane?
The piece of art that's keeping me sane. Yeah, it's interesting. I go through these periods, and right now I'm doing a lot of so much of my own work that I've kind of shut off a lot of the outside world. So what I have primarily artistically coming in is from my wife. She's a writer. She's a songwriter and a musician, but she's also just put out her first book, and she's working on her second book now. But she does a weekly blog that it's interesting because she doesn't tell me about it or what she's going to talk about or write about. And I just get an alert in my inbox once a week, and I go, oh yeah, my baby's blog is out, and I read it, and pretty much every week it brings me to tears or fills me with immense pride. Just the way that she looks at the world and sort of breaks down what's happening right now, whether it's the individual or the family or us collectively. uh, I'm just constantly and find myself in admiration of her way with words and her perspective on life. So I think more than anything right now, sorry, it's a cheesy answer, but it's um, that's as far as creative work, that's the most inspiring to me at the moment.
That's not cheesy at all. That is incredibly sweet and great to hear. So, when all of this is over and you can go back out and play on a stage in front of live people who can react, and you have that give and take with an audience, what's that going to mean to you?
Well, it feels a little surreal right now to even think about it, uh, and I'm not sure. Um, I feel like it's going to collectively take them and me a minute,
Hmm.
and um, because it'll probably be for myself. I've got gigs. We canceled everything up till the end of July, and I hope those hold. Uh, so that'll have been about 4.5 months for me of not working. So again, that's just I've never had that in my in my adult life. So I don't even know how to process it right now. I'm still, I think, getting used to whatever this new normal is, and then I think we're gonna have to do that again when we start going out to shows, and are the clubs a quarter full or a half full, or when does it get to back to what it was, and does that happen, and so I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns for me, but um, playing live in a room and being able to see people's faces and connect with them like that, that to me has always been the ultimate high. And I'm enjoying. There's different positives to these streams and stuff, but there's nothing that replaces that feeling of having an audience and feeling like you're connected with them in that way. And so I'm looking forward to getting back to it. I don't know when it'll be, or how exactly it'll be, but I think it's going to be uh, weird and special at the same time.
Uh-huh. So, what about the collaborative nature of what you do, writing songs with other people? Have you been able to keep that up during this? Send notes back and forth, get on a Zoom call and play some chords? What is that like right now?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. So like I release a song every month on Patreon, and the one I did this month was very much reflective of this time period, because I co-wrote it on a FaceTime call with a guy named Josh Morningstar. We FaceTimed a couple times, wrote the song, and then I sent it over to my neighbor Will Kimbrough on the uh, through the internet. I sent him the file, and he put some instrumentation on it, and he sent it back to me, and then I released it. And so I did all this without ever actually being in the same room with anybody, and it was kind of great. So I'm a socially awkward, restless person anyway. So sometimes I'm starting to think, like, rather when I co-write with people, you have to sit in a room with them for 4 or 5 hours. And it's like, this way you can there's no packing up awkwardly and trying to situation to get out. I can just say, well, something's burning on the stove, I gotta go, and then you're done. And I don't know, I kind of dig it so far, but again, it takes a little getting used to, but yeah, I mean, it's that ability to create is still there, and it's actually making me use some muscles that I hadn't used before, or were underused, and that's a good thing.
Oh, that's cool. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm going to bring our second guest in to join us here. So here comes Tommy Emmanuel. Hey, Tommy.
Greetings.
Hey, Tom.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Good.
So this is the part of the show where we all raise a glass to the folks that are just keeping us safe and healthy, and whoever else we feel like just is deserving of a cheers. So
Yeah.
I'll
Cheers.
start us off. I would like to toast all the people working in hospitals right now that aren't doctors and nurses, didn't think this is what they were getting into when, you know, when they took their job and are now part of the front lines, whether that's janitors, administrative folks, just all the behind the scenes folks that are doing their part and going to work every day still and putting themselves at risk. So cheers to all of the hospital workers. Thank you for your service.
Cheers.
Indeed, cheers.
Hayes, who else should we be toasting today?
Oof. Well, I'd say let's send out a toast to, God, there's so many, and so many people are suffering, and so many people are working hard and doing amazing things. But right now, for whatever reason, I'm thinking about all the people in the restaurant and service industries that we're living. A lot of them living week to week and have lost their income, and some are still finding ways to help out in their communities and just to get by. But I just want to give a toast to them because God knows they have kept me going for years and years of working in restaurants and playing in bars, and so I've been there, and my heart goes out to them right now during this tough time. So I hope they can get back to what they do soon.
To all the chefs and waiters and waitresses and
barbacks,
cooks and dishwashers. Yep.
Well,
tip them extra when we all get back to it. Cheers.
Sure.
All right, Tommy.
I'd like to say a toast and a big shout out to all the road crews, all the people who are out of a job right now because there's no live work at the moment, and there are some artists out there who have 150 people on the payroll. They're that big, and that's an amazing thing. I'm glad I'm not one of them actually, but it's people in the music business know how to come together in a time of crisis, and very, very grateful. I'm what I call a small business, and so the government are helping me to keep my people on the payroll. And so I want to say a big thanks to that part of the government, and I'm very, very, very grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the promoters and agents and all the people who are inside the backbone of our industry, the music business. I mean, I could sit here all day and talk about doctors and nurses. They amaze me. They really do. They inspire me. And this country knows how to rally together, as divided as it seems on the outside when you look in. But when you're here, even I'm an Australian, but I'm a US citizen. Last year, I became a US citizen. And so to all the new Americans and to all the old Americans and to all the people in our business, we say thank you. And we wish you a great and glorious future. Thank you.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
So, speaking of that, there is a donate button on our live stream right now where people can give to the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund. And that is not just for musicians, but also for people in the music industry that need help. So they've been doing great work for decades and are especially needed now. I know a lot of people watching probably are not in a position to give, but if you are, it's been great to see people rally around that. So thank you for that. And thank you to Hayes Carll for joining us today. This has been so much fun.
All right. Thank you, guys.
See you, Hayes.
All right. Take care,
Bye,
Tommy.
Hayes.
Bye-bye.
Here goes Hayes into the distance. Oh, there you go.
So, Tommy, welcome and congratulations on release day.
Well, thank you. Everybody, the first thing this morning, my phone rang, and before I could say hello, my manager said, "Happy release day."
Well, it's a big day, and it is a big release. So The Best of Tommy songs. This is a double album, 24 songs, old and new. Tell us a little bit about putting this thing together.
Well, it had been on my mind. I'm coming up for 60 years playing professionally in about 2 weeks' time. And I've written a lot of songs in my life and traveled a few miles. And I thought, I'd like to do something like an anthology, but I'd written a few of these new songs that are on the album. I wrote them within that year. I was thinking of doing sort of an anthology or a box set kind of thing, and I thought, no, maybe I'll leave that for a few more years if I can be granted a little more time here on planet Earth. And so I started to make a list of what I thought I should put on there, and I ended up with 26 songs, which I recorded, and then we kind of whittled it down to 24 for this project. 2 CDs with 12 songs on each one, 2 discs with 12 songs on each one. And most of the stuff that I've re-recorded are songs that I've had for some time. And years ago, I had an album which kind of was a groundbreaking album for me. It was called Only, and it came out in 2000, so 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And all original songs. And it was the album that really started to kick down the door for me in every territory around the world. It got people's attention, and not just the playing, but the songwriting. And I think that was a wonderful gift to me, that people noticed my songs and noticed my playing. As I toured in those early days, I played 2-hour shows with every ounce of my energy, and I hurled everything I could at the audience to give them a great time, entertain them, surprise them, make them want to come back. That's how you build an audience. I couldn't get on TV shows. I couldn't get on major radio shows and stuff in the early days because I was an instrumentalist, Mm-hmm. But that's okay. I just kept, as we say in Australia, I kept plugging away. And I eventually ate the elephant, one bite at a time. That's how you eat an elephant. So I'm still chewing away on that elephant. And it's like I have a family all around the world now because I've done this at a personal level. And so now I enjoy playing the songs again that I used to play and breathing some new life into them. And I've written some new songs since I've recorded this album, so,
Well, it's been great listening to it all day. It feels like great music for the moment. It's like song for a early morning.
Song for a rainy morning.
Rainy morning. Sorry, I got that. It is raining outside, and it was just a perfect song to be listening to today. It was just so relaxing, and you produced, recorded, wrote everything on the song. On the album. That's incredible.
Thank you. Well, it's not just me. I had a great team, or I have a great team around me. The guys who recorded me, Rory Rositos and Brad Benj at Omni Sound Studios in Nashville. They're both pals of mine, and I like that studio. It's not the fanciest studio in Nashville. I could have went to more fancy ones, but this place has a mojo to it. Every time I've worked there, I worked there with Ricky Skaggs, Jason Isbell, lots of different people. And it's always had that real earthy grit to it. And I just love that. And so Rory and Brad did a great job recording me. And I just used microphones. I had 4 microphones in front of my guitar, 2 as a pair, like top and bottom, 1 big German mic in the middle with a big diaphragm, and then at the back I had a ribbon microphone, which is a really old-fashioned style of microphone, which kind of picked up the whole area and gave it a little sort of grit, that I really like. And some songs I even I moved an inch closer just to get a bit more width and a bit more depth. And and I just, with every song, I achieved what I needed sonically to fulfill what was in here and what was in here. And then the guy I always go to for mixing and mastering is in Los Angeles, and his name is Mark DeSisto, and he's an amazing artist. And we just enjoy working together, and he's like a big part of my sound. So for me, it has to sound like your ear is right in front of my guitar. That's how it sounds to me, you know.
That's great. Well, we've got a couple hellos from Germany on here. We got people listening, and I know they would love to hear you play something. So what are you going to play first for us?
Oh, yes, I'm going to play Halfway Home for you. There you are.
Woo!
Halfway
That
home.
is fantastic. So it is just amazing to watch those fingers go. Can you talk a little bit about the style that you play and Chet Atkins and the whole inspiration behind the whole CGP program and what you do?
Well, I started playing the guitar as a rhythm guitar player from my brother Phil, who was the lead guitar player. And so I've always been a rhythm player first. When I was about 7, I heard Chet Atkins on the radio, and it galvanized me. It changed my life forever, because I heard a sound that I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to do that. Whatever that was, that's what I had to do, and I knew it, no question. And so I just had to figure it out. And I started with a straight pick, and doing this kind of thing. Playing with a straight pick. And then I eventually saw a photo of Chet playing, and he had a thumb pick on. And so I was trying to teach myself. I was trying to work out a lot of his songs and what he was doing. And it was way beyond me in those days, because I was just used to going D, G, and A7. And so trying to work out this stuff was hard. But I think by the time I was 10, I could play probably 3 or 4 of his simpler tunes, like Freight Train, trombone, windy and warm, that kind of thing. And then, then of course the Beatles came along, and people like Eric Clapton, and then I heard Merle Travis and Jerry Reed, and that opened up another big door for me. So, and I got interested in songwriting. I first tried to write a song when I was about 10, and I can't remember it, but my sister, who's no longer with us, could remember it. And every time I went to visit her, she'd say, "Get your guitar out," and she'd say, "Now this is how the melody goes." And she would sing it to me, and I would relearn it, but I kept forgetting it. I can't remember. But as a songwriter, of course, I didn't have a lot of living to draw on in my songwriting, and so my early work was really forgettable. But after about 20 years of songwriting, things started to take shape and things started to stick. And the more I worked with songwriters who were really successful and all that sort of stuff, I just kept learning and just kept at it. And I kept following my instincts, like, why does this part of this song really move me every time? Why is that note against that chord so powerful? Things like that. I just worked it out in my own head, kind of thing, And thanks to spending my whole life listening to everybody from Jimmy Rogers and Hank Williams and Merle Haggard and all that, to Gordon Lightfoot, Neil Diamond, Carole King, James Taylor, Paul Simon, all of those people. I couldn't have written the songs that I've written without the influence of all those people, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, everyone who's ever written great songs that changed the world. I was never interested in impressing musicians. I'm interested in using whatever I have to change the world, to do something for humanity, and I found that out a long time ago, that if it's not about me, then I can feel free. I don't have to be chained to self. Where you're full of pride and you have to prove yourself. I had to learn that was no good, and that what I have to do is be open to what the universe has in store for me. But I can't be full of myself, and when you're young and you're trying to make an impression on people, you're always full of yourself, and it's hard to unlearn all that. And it's taken a lifetime for me to become a channel, but I hope that's what I am.
Well, that's fantastic. Just going back to the idea of you think you used to not be a great songwriter. I feel like we imagine songwriters as just being gifted with this channeling of melodies, that melodies just you're born with them sort of coming through you, and that's not your experience at all. It was learning what makes a great melody and really understanding the mechanics of it and the beauty of it.
Yeah, always using something as a kind of gauge. How good is that melody? Well, let's go back and hear James Taylor sing "Shower the People," shall we? And focus on that melody. Oh my goodness, And it's just great to have the legacy of all the people who came before us to draw from as well. There's so many clever songwriters out there, and I'm one of millions of guitar players around the world, and really I'm very fortunate that I write the way I do and that I play the way I do, because there's a million people who technically can play better than I'll ever play, but I write my songs and I play the way I do, and I have to stick at that, and I have to be satisfied that that's my voice and that's my sound. And thank God, that's the one thing that makes me stand out from the herd.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great voice, and it is a very unique voice, and I would love to hear another song from you in that voice.
Angelina.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. See, I couldn't have written that if I hadn't listened to Stevie Wonder and James Taylor. You can hear them all, you know. And I have a lyric, you know. Angelina, come to your daddy's arms. Angelina, I'll keep you safe from harm. Angelina, sit on your papa's knee. Angelina, don't you go too far from me. When I wrote that song, Angelina had just been born, and I held her in my arms 5 minutes after she came into the world, and I knew she's already running towards tomorrow, but there's something old-fashioned about her. I just knew it straight away, and that's you know. And so I had to find a melody that could spell out her name. 4 syllables. Angelina. 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 Yeah. So, there you go.
That's fantastic. Well, you mentioned that you just became a U.S. citizen last year.
Yes.
Can you tell us just a little bit about what it's meant to, as someone who's been living here for a while, to become a U.S. citizen and be part of, for better or worse, everything that's going on here?
Well, I've been coming here since 1980, and really, I'm a little older than you, Josh, and this country really has nourished me in every way I know. You know, when I was a kid in Australia, I was a big fan of Western movies, John Wayne movies, Glenn Ford movies, and that was a part of American history and American movies that were, really, really wonderful for a kid to have a role model like John Wayne, or just to enjoy the entertainment of those movies. And of course, if I saw a Chevy or a Pontiac, my heart just raced, because that was a beautiful American car, And then, my brother and I dreamed about owning a Fender guitar or a Fender amp, So in the early days, anything that came out of America was the best in the world, Probably with the exception of Mercedes-Benz. But other than that, everything that came out of this country was the best. And it set up a mark, it set up a level that the rest of us had to strive, made us all work harder, By the time the mid to late 70s came around, I was doing a lot of studio work in Sydney and Melbourne in Australia. And I just was frustrated with a lot of musicians who, they were way too comfortable and way too cocky for their own good, The Americans that I'd met traveling with overseas artists were enthusiastic, humble, encouraging, and the local people I met were like, don't go thinking you're too good, buddy. We're better than those Yanks. All that BS, And I started going to LA and to hear American musicians play live, and they were far better than anything I'd ever seen before. Even the guy in the goddamn Holiday Inn playing in the restaurant was better than most of the guys back in Australia. And I'm like, I'm on the right track. I got to get better than that guy in the Holiday Inn, He was good, And so it was a good perspective for me. And when I came here in 1980 and I met my hero, Chet Atkins, he kind of whispered in my ear and in my heart, this is where you should be. This is where you belong. And I moved to Nashville in 2003, but I'd been here many times, and I'd fly over and play 3 or 4 shows with Chet, and then I'd fly back, So every penny I earned, I invested in myself, coming here, building an audience and all that sort of stuff. But I eventually got a green card, and that was wonderful, but it was going to expire. And I decided that this is where I want my roots to go down. Mm-hmm. So I was living in Nashville for 16 years, and that's where I became a citizen. And so that was last May. So it's been almost a year. It's been a year, yeah.
That's great. Well, one thing we ask everybody on the show, as we are all a little stuck at home, is mm-hmm. What is the piece of art that has been keeping you entertained, whether that's a TV show, a book, other people's albums?
Well, I've been working on a film myself. I'm currently working on the soundtrack to a film that's already made. Myself and a young man named Don Harper, who's based in Los Angeles. We're doing this film at the moment, and I've been writing the music just with my guitar, recording it on voice memos on my phone and texting what I've written to him. He orchestrates it and puts it in the film and sends it back to me, and we see how it's working. So I've been doing that. I've spent every second day with my daughter, who lives here with her mother, and that has been the greatest joy for me, because I hadn't got to see her a lot in the last year. So this has been really wonderful for me. She's only 5. And so that's been great. I've learned how to cook better. But the thing for me is it's given me time to reconnect with a lot of my family, who I don't get a chance to talk with all the time. And it's great to have the time to do that and not have to squeeze it in between so many things that keep you busy. And I just think that this virus has shocked the world. To me, it's what I needed. I needed to slow down, just not at the expense of so many people, but it's definitely taught me to slow down and to really forget about all the stuff that you used to do, and try and build a new life for yourself where you can do both. You can have your quiet time, you can have your family time, you can work hard, but don't let it get to where it got before.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been such a joy. Thank you for taking time out of a busy day today when you've got an album to release. And
yeah, I got
this
a
has
concert.
been, yeah, people can hear you again, hear you play more a little bit later tonight. How do they find you?
They can go to my website, tommyemmanuel.com, and there's information on there. It starts at 6 p.m. And that's Pacific time. That's the downbeat for me to play. The actual concert site, if you go in early, you can check out all the new videos, and all the live stuff that I've done is all being streamed for an hour before the show, and then I come and play live.
That's fantastic. Well,
Thanks
cool. Well,
on Paste and hello New York.
all right. Well, when this is all over, we've got to see you in the studio again.
Last time I was there was with my buddy John Knowles, and we had a great time, and we just love doing that kind of stuff and hanging out with you guys in New York. What a great city.
Cool.
Hope everyone's getting through it over there.
All right. Thanks, Tommy.
Josh.
Thanks.